Continuation of our August 16th, 2021 Board of Selectmen's meeting. On the agenda, we have public service announcements. We have a moment of silence. At 6:35, we have a public hearing on DeLeo Gas to amend their application for propane tanks. We have department reports from the DPW, economic development presentation, town administrator. Then we have several action items, consideration and possible action on common victual licenses for Apple Green New England, LLC, Burger King of Apple Green, and Dunkin' Donuts at Apple Green. Consideration and possible action on a survey and planning grant contract. Consideration and possible action on appointing Zachary Matarosian as a full-time police officer in the Sturbridge Police Department. Consideration and possible action on the completion of the purchase of 133, 137, 139 Fisk Hill Road, 48 Old Farm parcels. Consideration and possible action on the approval of Agronomy Farm Vineyard as a vendor for the farmers market. Consideration and possible action on the appointment of a Board of Selectmen delegate and alternate to MRPC. Consideration and possible action on the appointment of Kelly Emerick to the CPC committee. Consideration and possible action on a contract for sidewalk work at Burgess Elementary. Consideration and possible action on a taxi cab livery license for Timothy Tucker for Charles River Service, doing business as Sturbridge Car Service. Consideration and possible action on election workers for the 2021-2022 election cycle. Consideration and possible action on the acceptance of the resignation of Amanda Normanden from the Design Review Committee. Consideration and possible action on a change of manager on their liquor license to Christopher Brown for Uno Restaurants, LLC, doing business as Uno Chicago Grill. Then we have old business, under which we have a COVID update and discussion on the Equine Center racetrack. New business, correspondence, approval of minutes of August 2nd, citizens forum, then we will adjourn. Pardon my voice, I don't know if it's the pollen in the air that they said is moderate or what. Okay, public service announcements. Ian, do you have any?
I do not have any.
Chase?
I have none.
Mary?
No.
I do not, Madam Chair.
And I don't either.
Can I ask can everybody make sure you talk in the microphones, because that helps. I sound at home.
Oh, you drag it close to you,
Thank you.
maybe even closer, like where your water bottle is.
Thank you.
Okay, could we please have a moment of silence now for all those affected by COVID? Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, 6:35. We have a public hearing. Chase, do you have the legal notice?
Page 17, page 11.
The Town of Sturbridge Board of Selectmen, in accordance with MGL Chapter 148, Section 13, hereby given notice that a public hearing will be held on Monday, August 16, 2021, at 6:35 p.m. for the application of DeLeo Gas, Inc. for an amended license for gas tanks with flammable materials located at 51 Technology Park Road, Sturbridge, Mass. 01566. The public hearing will take place at the Town Hall, second floor, Veterans Memorial Hall, located at 308 Main Street, Sturbridge, Mass. 01566.
Okay, is there anyone here from DeLeo? I mean, it's,
Is anyone on the screen from DeLeo Gas?
Yes, Paul DeLeo from DeLeo Gas is here, one of the owners.
okay.
You want to kind of tell us what you're doing
Yeah.
and your application?
Before that, could you please restate your name again? I don't think it came through.
Yeah, do you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, can you restate your name, please?
Yes, Paul DeLeo, owner of DeLeo Gas. What we're applying for is additional storage to our land license for flammable products. We currently have two 30,000-gallon underground propane tanks approved with the license. It's our understanding from the state fire marshal and from the town that we need to have propane trucks that are going to be on the property additionally listed on the town license. So that is the reason for this amended license that we're here for today.
Any questions from the board? No questions. It's a public hearing. Anyone in the audience have a question or a comment?
Chief, are you familiar with this application? Yeah, I am familiar. Do you want to hear from the chief?
So one of the requirements for storage is that any storage vessel is included on the a permit. The total gallonage or the total capacity of that vessel has to be listed. And even if it's empty, for purposes of the permit, it's considered full. So Mr. DeLeo had to resubmit because of the additional vessels that he was going to have on the property.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Nothing else from the board? Okay, is there a motion then to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion? All in favor? Okay, 5-0. Okay, you're all set, Mr. DeLeo.
Oh, you need to vote on,
Thank you for your time.
Well, we didn't vote.
you didn't vote on the permit.
How come I did the same thing last meeting? Okay, is somebody willing to make a motion then
I'll make the motion to approve the amended license
as submitted?
as submitted by DeLeo Gas.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor? Okay, now you're really all set.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have department reports. DPW.
Yes,
Good evening, Butch.
good evening, how are you?
Good, and you?
Okay, we have June and July reports. Again, not a whole lot out of the ordinary going on. We're just doing a lot of prep for the paving and milling. So if you have any questions on the reports, and I'll give you an update on the paving and milling after.
Any questions on either report?
I do have one question that's just for my own edification. What is a beaver grate?
Oh,
We have culverts and we put grates in front of them so the beavers don't do their thing and we can easily rake them out. Just keeps them from getting clogged.
I assumed it was.
Yep.
Thanks.
because there is a beaver problem places. Okay, Butch, you can,
Paving, we were supposed to start August 1st, and with all the rain in June, the paving companies are way behind. The milling could have come in on the 1st, but I didn't want to open up all these streets and have them open for a month before we paved, so we pushed the milling back to next Tuesday, the 24th. And then we're going right for Brookfield Road to get that milled and paved that week so we can get it done before school starts on the 30th. We'll do Brookfield Road, then North Drive, and then we'll attack the rest of them. But then once they come into town, they'll be going full tilt until they're done, and then the paving will do the same. So I'm anticipating by the third week of September, we should be done. So even earlier,
sounds good.
so.
Questions from the board? Okay, anything else?
I do, actually. Well, thanks for asking. I have a plastic tank that we tried to auction off. It's a 6,000-gallon plastic tank that's been sitting down at the sewer department for 11 years. Nobody wanted it, and Shane found a company out of Abington. It's a seal coat company that was interested in taking it if they could get it for free. I would have to pay to get rid of it, so I'm happy with getting rid of it. So if you guys would release that, then I can have him come get that.
Okay, is there a motion then to release?
The tank,
the tank.
so moved
as an asset.
as an asset.
I'll second Mary's motion.
Discussion? All in favor?
You don't want it, Butch? We don't want it.
I was thinking about it, but I'll pass. That's it.
All set?
Thank you.
Thanks, Butch.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, please.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have the economic development presentation. Mr. Masterson.
I'm going to.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm going to walk through the report that I submitted. Make sure you're talking. Yeah. I'm going to mention that in the report at the end, I gave you two tables of the meals and hotel tax spending. And what I'm going to do with these two tables is that they'll become an ongoing part of whenever I come back to talk to you, you'll have these tables in front of you, because what I've created here is a historical lineage for your meals and hotel spending back to 2017. And I've converted these numbers to calendar year as well, so you can really look at what the spending patterns have been for meals and hotel spending. And obviously, meal spending is a very good barometer of consumer activity, on an ongoing basis. Meal spending, some of the key points are, from 2017 to 2019, meal spending was very steady at approximately $60 to $63 million a year. And from 2020, which would be the COVID year, it dropped nearly 30% to $46 million. And that's not as steep a decline as you're going to see with the hotel spending, but nevertheless, it's a decline. When COVID hit in 2020, meal spending dropped 50% that spring, and then only dropped 42% that summer, so there was a little bit of a rebound, but not by much. But I'm happy to say that meal spending for this spring of 2021 is back up to levels that you had in spring of 2019, 18, and 17. So that, I think, is a very good sign of coming back to levels that the town has been accustomed to. And we all know so far anecdotally that this summer has been very busy as a tourist season, travelers, and so we should hopefully see some good numbers going forward with the meal spending. Hotel spending is a little bit of a different story, and that, of course, drives the tax revenues that feed the tourism board and their activities. From 2017 to 2019, hotel spending was always about $17 million a year, also on a consistent footing. This dropped almost 50% in 2020 to just under $9 million. And if you look at some of the quarters for hotel spending, you can see it really dropped some of the off-season quarters to extremely low levels. Whereas meals spending has remained steady, hotel spending may not. I don't know that it's going to boomerang like the meal spending has and come right back to where we hope it was. And for summer and fall, I think will be very strong for hotel spending. The annual total may or may not be above the 2020 total, so we'll have to see. But I share those numbers with you, and as I said, when I come back and report, you'll have these tables in front of you, and we'll just continually see where we're going. The rest of the report moves on to retail relocations and departures. On an observational level, in an overall way, the retail properties on Route 20 and Route 131 seem to be well occupied with no major long-term vacancies, but I'll have some specific information about that in a second. I also want to state that we are going to try in October to have what will become an annual inventory of the economic conditions within the town, and that will include an annual retail inventory and an analysis of arrivals, departures, vacancy rates, asking rents, so that creating sort of that database, and then going forward year over year, you can start to look at where your retail market is in terms of occupancy. The J.C. Penney space is worth talking about. We all share the idea that this was an unfortunate loss for the town and hard to understand given the store's popularity. But it is good to say that the ownership has been very active in working to find new tenants for this 50,000 square foot space. And it appears that a center tenant has been secured, and there's only a remaining 7,000 square foot floor print remaining. So I think that's a positive, that the space did not sit fallow for a very long period of time. It's also very positive to report a slew of recent retail relocations, which we're all aware of, but I'll repeat them, as Teddy G's is going to purchase and occupy the former Friendly's location on Route 20, which is a really positive move because it will establish a locally owned business onto a well-trafficked retail corridor and not so much a national chain or national brand retailer, which is a different economic value. We certainly like to see properties occupied, but a local business, obviously, to me, is a greater positive. And then just recently, Dorico's, the longtime Worcester upper-end meat purveyor, will be taking space within the newly constructed local roots facility on Route 20. That's very good to hear. And also, this spring, Heel and Local Roots opened up, and then Heel opened at the end of May. So those are two new relocations to the town. And there is an approval for a startup business to go to 380 Main Street, which is the former Old Sturbridge Village Chamber Visitor Center. So let's see if something develops there. So,
Terry, excuse me, has there been any discussion about the delay in the opening? Because I know the owner got approval back in the spring. And
I have not heard anything, no.
I mean, it's ice cream time.
What?
It's ice cream
There's
time.
no place to get it in town.
They
Annie's, yeah.
They also want to serve food, and I think there's some infrastructure questions about changing equipment and the infrastructure within the building, so that might be a challenge that they're dealing with to make occupancy reality.
Oh, Mary.
A very quick question.
Mary
What-
has a question on.
So we're splitting up the J.C. Penney facility a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and what's going in that center tenant? I mean, it says, if it's confidential, don't
No,
share
it's
it.
been published.
It-
Oh, I didn't read it. I didn't-
Yeah,
Planet Fitness.
yeah.
Planet Fitness.
Okay, that's what I thought, but somebody else, okay, I didn't know if that was that's official.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right,
Now
thank
they
you.
got the
I was
approval.
falling behind. Okay, thank you.
I'm only hesitant to say because it's just the nature of the business. I don't, if it was public, obviously we.
No,
say
I
it.
know it
Yeah,
was
no,
before the, okay, I'm good,
But-
thank you.
Yeah. Under departures and vacancies, on the following page, I created a table to list for you the retail vacancies. It's not a total official list, but that pretty much, I think, a good appraisal of it. There are 7 vacant properties with 4 that are, I think, are in a positive place. 2 have strong to rumored levels of interest. One, the Santander space, I think, will be filled at some point because it's in such an attractive location. The Bank of America space, I think, also will be an attractive candidate for occupancy. The chamber space we discussed, there is a suitor for that space. The Cinemagic space will remain, continues to remain a bit of a challenge. The only positive to that might be that because it's wide open space, it won't be difficult for some other tenant to come and take it if its future as a theater is narrow. And then, speaking of the Hobbsbrook Retail Plaza, that plaza currently has 19 tenants with 3 spaces that are vacant. The total square footage of this plaza is about 231,000 square feet, and there's only about 40,000 square feet that's empty, which is a 17% vacancy rate. And as I said, the largest vacant space is the Cinemagic space at nearly 30,000 square feet, or 29 to be exact. And there are 2 smaller spaces at 3,400 and 8,000. I will say that anytime we call the ownership for the property, they're very responsive, they're very enthusiastic, and they seem to be very much interested in trying to market the space, which I think is a good thing to share. Sometimes that may not be the case often. Moving on to that is major new projects, and there's been several, as we know. The New England cold storage facility and Complete Cold are in various stages of development. New England Cold is under construction and approved, and Complete Cold has just started the construction phase. There's currently before the town, and it was approved, what will be a Noble Energy Travel Center and electric vehicle charging center on Charlton Road, which will also be very, very interesting projects because it will be a travel center to serve travelers with a food component and the gas stations. And then there will be an electrical voltage, what they call Discovery Center or an education center, in which on the first floor, consumers can be exposed to electrical vehicles and be educated as to their benefits and their value. And obviously, there's a promotional value to that in the way the economy is changing over to electrical vehicles. So to have this in our town would be very progressive, very positive thing. On the second floor of this building will be a 120-seat full-service restaurant with an outdoor patio. And that will also be a great thing for the town to have, because the owner of the property is very committed to education and workforce training, and he is going to partner with Nichols College to recruit students to come and learn culinary arts and also management. So they will become an integral part of the travel center and the EV center moving forward. And Mike Frisbee, the owner, is also reaching out to Bay State to talk to them in their food service school as well, to recruit students to come in and learn. So I think that's very positive. And Mike has also offered, when the project is completed, that the floor space on the second floor will be easily broken down, and that he would make it available for community use, community events. And I think that is also something to think about, particularly for a lot of uses that go on in the community. Indoor space is also very valuable. So that, the value of all of these projects comes to $44.8 million, which is a significant positive for the tax base of the town. The total square footage is about 225,000 square feet. Total number of jobs is 60. And obviously, we've seen anecdotally the benefits of the RV park, which opened this spring, and you can see the RVs all through the town during the week, and that has brought a lot of travelers into the town, which is also, I think, very exciting and positive to have, especially now. Under tourism and marketing efforts, there's a lot to report. The Sturbridge Tourism Guide this spring was published, and that's available, and that has been distributed as well, and it has a circulation of about 6,000 copies that are distributed locally and regionally, and it also appears on our town website. Speaking of the website, we are working with the Sperling Interactive website firm in Salem, Massachusetts, to develop a standalone tourism website, which the Sturbridge Tourism Board is very committed to as a way of promoting Sturbridge as a tourism attraction and location. And they have been working with the content, the language, the narrative. They were in here last week taking photographs, and we think that, we look forward to coming up with a very positive way to attract people to Sturbridge. And we hope to have that early fall completed. The Sturbridge Tourism Association also commenced a summer marketing campaign and has, which we are currently experiencing right now, which includes emails, text ads, banner ads on the emails or the website, and a variety of frequencies during the months of July and August. And they will be appearing or are appearing in Yankee Magazine, which has a tremendous subscription and readership. AARP, which also has a significant readership and a membership base. Smithsonian, which has a very active national audience of people who like history and culture. And then later this September will be a media campaign with Boston.com with email newsletters and the front sections of their travel section. So we look forward to hearing what some of the results are. We had a very good, successful fall campaign with a lot of views and impressions, and I'm sure that that will be the case here as well. This also parallels Old Sturbridge Village engaging in a summer advertising campaign based on a grant that they received from the Massachusetts Office of Tourism. The theme of the campaign is called Come and Stay, and it is partnered with local businesses such as Public House, The Comfort Inn, and Table 3. There's a 60-second ad that they've created, which you can find on their website, which is a lot of fun to watch and very well done. And they have been running that ad all through the Boston markets this summer and hope to do it through the fall. The STA board has agreed to carry the campaign through September. So that will be a way of extending the benefits of that message to promote Sturbridge to the region and the state. There is also an effort to continue with OSV and a bus tour consultant in near Rochester called Break the Ice Media to try to continue to recruit bus tours. The feeling is that starting next season, bus tours will be returning. Some of them have started to return now as we speak. So that effort will bring a lot of visitors to the town and to Old Sturbridge Village. As you also know, there are on our utility poles, there are the OSV 75th anniversary banners, which went up last week. And that's another addition to what OSV is doing to celebrate their 75th anniversary. And we will be hearing more from them as the year goes on as to activities that they have planned, including a small business event and also messaging events through the course of the year, and also working out a gift to the town, which will be discussed as we go forward. My end of the report is to talk about Kathleen Mccabe presented in May the final Sturbridge Economic Assessment Report, and that has been completed, and we had a very good meeting here, and Kathleen has been very well versed and very well informed about economic development, and I think has put together a really great, very detailed report. And she's also given us additional information on things to do going into the coming year, and also applications that might help us in trying to use some of the federal funding that may come further down the road toward the town. So I think that's very, very worthwhile, and very appreciate that very much. We are also working with the state on local recovery planning, and have been dealing with the Stan Tech consulting firm to try to identify needs for Sturbridge and its small businesses. And we hope to be having a report on that within the next, I would say, 4 to 6 weeks, to talk about identifying things that could be done to help the small business community that would be a great way of identifying those things, so that if funding does appear for certain things, you will be in a position to have planned for it, identified it, and scoped it out. and you're in a position to take advantage of it. So there's some value to that as well. That is my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments from the board?
The numbers that you're seeing for decrease in hotel stays, are we in line with like nationwide, or are we suffering more than others? I guess is the way to put it.
how we're doing now is probably as good as everyone else is doing, and I think everyone is doing very, very well, anecdotally. I think that our hotel losses were pretty much consistent with other towns in Massachusetts, but I would say that Boston really went down to literally almost zero. I mean, it was, so they have, been hit the hardest. But for us, when you look at certain quarters, we too really fell to a really, really low level. So, and then how fast we come back, it seems to be we are coming back fast. And fall is really the peak season for Sturbridge hotel occupancy. So I think you're doing well this summer, and then when fall comes, I think that will continue. So, yeah, but I also think a good question is, the day visitor and the day shopper could be as much or more than our, visitor component than the lodging. The lodging is still on the strength of travelers, commuters, business visitors, that's still there as well. And I think when you look at some of the numbers in the COVID months, there was still that consistency. So you see, that there's I want to come or I need to go there. It's different, so.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
I did have a question. In terms of the economic assessment report that Kathleen Mccabe did, I remember some of the action items were like signage on the turnpike, a ride share, other things to sort of open Sturbridge up a little bit in terms of some other functionality that's helpful for small businesses. Where are the action items on that? Is that going to be in the report that I think you said that's coming out in 4 to 6 weeks, somewhere else?
The local recovery report is going to address as a desire, as a plan, as a goal, to find ways to improve signage for businesses on Route 20 and 131, and to try to encourage businesses and hopefully find resources to help them improve their own physical facades as well, to give people a visual idea of what they're driving by, as well as visualizing. So yeah, that's a part of it. And Kathleen has discussed the idea of trying to talk to DOT about finding ways to promote the tourism potential of the regions at the rest stops. And I recently sent an email to Monique Messier and Patrick Coit, because when you go through the rest stops, there's not really anything on surrounding locations. I mean, where before there was. So that's also going to be.
All set, Jamie? Okay, anyone else?
Thought it was very well done, Terry.
Yeah, thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Very thorough.
Okay, town administrators report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a lead-in to my report, we're going to start off with the status of the warehouse projects in Charlton, 241 and 53 Sturbridge Road. This evening on the remote meeting is Attorney Krieger, who we've engaged to kind of help us out a little bit, to provide some guidance on some of these issues. And I'll ask Attorney Krieger to say hello.
Good evening, members of the board. Jeff?
I'll ask do you have any input at this point on the options for the board, or what we should be looking at on these two projects?
Yes, the so-called non-Amazon project, I think it's 241 Charlton Road, just received a certificate, or at least I just received it, from the Secretary of EOEEA on the draft environmental impact report. And that essentially approved the draft, but required certain additional steps in the final EIR. And those include further traffic analysis,
including further engagement with Sturbridge on the intersection of Route 20 and Picker Road and Fisk Hill Road, which, according to the certificate, Sturbridge had asked that for some analysis of traffic mitigation measures at those at that intersection. I'm not clear if that's one or two intersections. And so the EIR, the final EIR, has to reflect further discussion with you about that request. I don't know at what level that engagement will take place, whether it'll just be between your consultant, Pair Engineering, and VAI, the applicant's traffic consultant, or whether it will be something involving Jeff or something else. But that's the status of that project. The other one, I think, Jeff, if I'm correct, I haven't seen a certificate on a DEIR. I think the Amazon project is a little farther behind.
That's correct. It's just getting started. It just finished their scope for the MEPR process.
Okay. And you've put in comments, I believe, the select board, but also Pair Engineering, John Shevlin, your traffic engineer. So there are three traffic engineering firms involved. One is VAI, one is the town of Charlton's peer reviewer, and one is John Shevlin, Pair, which is yours. So your consultant doesn't have any official role like the peer reviewer does, but comments from John Shevlin are received and reviewed like any other comments. Stepping back from the details of the EIR process, there's a zoning process because both projects have gone in for a special permit for increased height under an amendment to the Charlton zoning bylaw. I think it was this past spring, might have been last year. And it's a special permit, not a variance, and the bylaw was amended to authorize this kind of special permit, so there's not a lot to say about it. Other than that, zoning appears to be in place, although I haven't analyzed it in detail, but that special permit is the only issue I've heard about. And I don't have a lot to tell you about your rights to actually appeal any of these determinations, either zoning or environmental impact. I don't want to say too much publicly like this, but you would need standing, you would need aggrievement to be allowed to bring an appeal, and that would that's an issue that would bear further analysis, as Jeff and I have talked about. So you've got your MEPA process, the environmental impact, you've got your zoning process, and then there's one permit that actually bears directly on traffic, which is a curb cut permit from Mass Highway, because Route 20 is a state highway, as you know. And the curb cut permit is supposed to look at traffic. So it's a potential, leverage point, but on the other hand, once it's been through the MEPA process and traffic has been fully analyzed and blessed by the secretary, I'm not sure that I would count on DOT withholding a curb cut permit. Those are the legal, there are other legal angles to this involving wetlands on the site, et cetera, but I think those are the major ones. Those are the ones that, at least the first two are the ones that Jeff and I have discussed. So my role so far has been to review the traffic comments and some of the traffic analysis and the peer review. But really, the traffic comments that are worth anything at this stage come from John Shevlin rather than me. And so I think he's in the process of commenting on the appropriate parts of the MEPA process. And other than that, I've been brainstorming with Jeff a little bit, but I think those are the issues that I see so far.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board?
Just a comment. As you noted, Art, that the comments on the MEPA report said that that project, the 241, had to engage with Sturbridge a little bit more. Gene and I did have an opportunity to talk to their traffic person about our comments. He wanted to make sure he understood where we were coming from on those comments. And the traffic engineer for 241 is the same engineer for 53 Sturbridge Road. So they're going to have to, So they're going to have to put together a package showing cumulative impacts for DOT for both projects as they relate to Sturbridge. So, and again, John Shepherd will have to participate in that.
It's positive.
Yep, both of those projects, and I think the Noble Energy project that was described earlier.
That's correct.
That's always one of the issues in the NEPA traffic analysis is whether all the projects that are in the pipeline or in a permitting process are being considered for their cumulative impact. So those are the major ones, but I did see some mention of some others that I assume will be appropriately considered in the various future scenarios for traffic.
Mary?
Hi, Attorney Krieger. Mary Dowling. I just have a couple of questions on the background. So that draft environmental impact report requires, as Jeff said, engagement with Sturbridge on traffic mitigation?
I'm not able to hear you clearly if the comment's directed to me. If it's not directed to me, that's fine.
I just wanted to go over the traffic mitigation that they're required to engage with Sturbridge in this latest draft environmental impact report you mentioned, and Jeff just mentioned. What would be some examples of traffic mitigation that would really benefit Sturbridge? Because sometimes I'll have residents ask, and I'll say, well, we're doing what we can to alleviate traffic. And they say, well, how can that be done? Is the amount of trucks going to be limited? Or what are examples of traffic mitigation that they may have to engage in? What would be a win for Sturbridge on that?
I think that falls into two categories. One is, and these are broad categories, one is roadway or intersection improvements. So everything from separate turning lanes to get people out of the main traffic flow to signalization, to retiming existing signals, road widening, basically to modify the roadway system so that to handle more traffic more easily. The second category, I think, is on the demand management side, and the EIR requires them to, and the draft does do this, go into demand management. So it's things like extending bus service, and bicycle storage facilities or bicycle lanes or something. I mean, I'm not sure they're going to make a huge dent in the demand in the traffic generation on Route 20, but
I can't imagine anybody would want to ride their bike in Route 20.
but the demand management is a fairly typical set of mitigation measures. It works a lot better in probably in more urban settings. John Shevlin, of course, can describe all this much more authoritatively than I can. But I think those are your traffic mitigation measures, really. I don't know that any of them will make a huge difference for you here, but cumulatively they might make a dent in it.
Okay, just one more question. The other thing that you said, a curb cut permit from the Mass DOT. Could we do anything to request the Mass DOT to have an actual exit off of the Mass Pike devoted to?
To actually what?
To have an actual exit off of the Pike, so they're not getting off in Sturbridge, they're getting off in Charlton. Is that something that the Mass DOT, obviously, the Mass DOT has authority to require that, correct? Or no? I don't know.
I don't think so, because the Pike, of course, is an interstate highway, so you got the feds involved if you're doing a new exit, not to mention, all the right-of-way and logistical issues. I mean, that's a 5-year proposition, if that, in my experience. So I don't think a new exit is in the cards anytime on the timeline of these projects. That is, Mass DOT is not going to say, no curb cut permit, we want you to go start the process for a Pike exit. As a long-term solution, that may be an answer, but I leave that to the traffic engineers and planners.
That was part of our comment package.
I know, but I didn't realize, so you got to get the federal government involved because it's an interstate highway. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I guess Attorney Krieger, Jamie Goodwin, just in terms of timing here, stepping back, so when is the Amazon facilities NEPA process going to, how long will that be going on? I am understanding it correctly.
Jeff, are you on top of that timeline for the Amazon NEPA process?
I don't have an exact timeline. They are still going through the public hearing process at the planning board. and that'll take 2 more meetings. The MEPA process scope just finished up, and that's what we provide comments on. We can reach out to find out when we expect that draft EIS to be available.
A draft EIR probably takes 6 months anyway. It's quicker than the final, because the final, if the draft is any good, the final is just a supplementation and modification of the draft based on the comments and the certificate. So this is really the big gap in this schedule, is to do the draft EIR. Whether it's 6 months or 4 or 8, I have no way of knowing, but perhaps John Shevlin has a better handle on that.
We can find out.
There's no deadline for it.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thank you, Attorney Krieger.
Thank you, Art.
Thank you all for having me and for your engaging on these issues, and Jeff and I will continue to be in touch.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night. Okay, Jeff?
What's that? Sorry?
Good night.
Have a great night.
Okay, thanks. Good night.
The rest of my report is in the packet. If you have any questions on the other items, let me know. But that's what I have this evening.
Jeff, I just had one comment on the request for the 3 requests that came in for all of the minutes and everything else. It's quite voluminous. However, Dina Sexton's name is on both that says requester, whereas the second one is really signed by Tara Linton, so it should jive up.
Did I put Dina's in twice? Is that what happened?
Yeah, it's requester is Dina on this one.
Okay, because we
But
got 2
it's-
from Dina, 1 from
It's really
Tara.
Tara.
So I'll make sure you get a copy of the Tara one.
200.
Okay.
The 3 things begin on 201. And how's that coming along? Because there's an awful lot of requests.
Good. We had a meeting, the department heads who were involved had a meeting on Friday. We provided a preliminary response back to the requesters, and we're gathering up the information over the next week or 2.
Okay.
So should wrap up soon.
Okay, we also have a packet here on the transportation impact assessment comments. Did anyone have any questions on that or comments? It's part of Jeff's update.
That's the report that we're sending to John Shevlin to review as part of a quasi-peer review. Tara Linton's letter's on page 200. And Dina's is 198.
Yes, but on the front of 200, 199.
Oh, I see what you're
It says
saying.
requester.
Yep, I get it. Yep, my bad.
She was like that as a teacher too, Jeff, don't worry.
I understand. No,
Hey, you passed. Just barely.
Also me.
Kidding.
but that's what I have this evening.
Okay, does anyone else have anything on his report? Okay, next on the agenda, we have consideration and possible action on common victual licenses for Apple Green New England LLC, Burger King at Apple Green, and Dunkin' Donuts at Apple Green. Is there anyone here representing Apple Green?
Who's the Apple Green, is there an Apple Green representative here? Tom?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that was some regional manager for the station.
And your name, sir?
Thomas DeGenis.
Okay, it's probably self-explanatory, but could you, just for the people at home, explain the common victular licenses you're applying for?
Okay, could you hear us?
I can barely hear any of you. I can hear clearly the person sitting next to the brown table, but seems like there's something wrong with the microphone and the rest of the people.
Well, do you want to give us some kind of, just a brief intro to what you're asking for in the businesses you're seeking a common vic for?
That's a good question. I was asked to come in here if you would have any questions. But the license, I understand, is a food license for Burger King, Dunkin' Donuts, and store itself. That's my understanding.
Is the Burger King a franchise? Who's the franchisee on the Burger King?
It's under Apple Green.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, they're all apple green.
okay.
Okay, does anybody have any questions, comments? Okay, we can take them one at a time. Common victular application for apple greens, 24 hours, 7 days a week. Someone want to make a motion to approve or disapprove?
I'll make a motion to approve the common vic application and the officer list for Apple Green Inc., 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor? Okay, the next one is Apple Green's Burger King, 7 a.m. to 12 a.m., Monday to Sunday. Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the common vic application and officer list for Burger King, 7 a.m. to 12 a.m., Monday through Sunday.
Is there a second?
I will second.
It actually says 6 a.m. on their application.
Yeah, 6 a.m. to 12 a.m.
We were saying 7.
Yeah,
so that's
sorry,
one
so
of the- yeah.
amend
Oh,
to 6.
I didn't
Yep,
listen.
yep.
Sorry. Okay, no more discussion, all in favor? Okay, then the last one is Apple Green Dunkin' Donuts, 5 days a week, looks like 5 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week.
I'll make a motion to approve the common vic application and officer list for Dunkin' Donuts, 7 days a week, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m.
I'll second Chase's motion.
Okay, discussion, all in favor? Okay, you're all set, thank you.
Okay, everyone.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have consideration and possible action on a survey and planning grant contract. Jeff, you want to go over this?
Yes, thank you. The Sturbridge Historic Commission has been granted a $15,000 grant to conduct a community-wide historic preservation plan. That plan will be combined with $20,000 of CPC money to undertake the planning process. Before you this evening are just the contracts for the grant with the state of Massachusetts. So we ask that you approve the grant contract and authorize the chair to sign.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Someone willing to make a motion then?
Yes, I will move to approve the standard contract form for the receipt of the State of Massachusetts Historical Commission Survey and Planning Grant in the amount of $15,000 and authorize the chair to sign on the town's behalf.
Is there-
I'll second the motion.
Okay, discussion? All in favor? Okay, next we have consideration and possible action on appointing Zachary Matarosian as a full-time police officer in the Sturbridge Police Department. Chief?
Good evening. Tonight,
Good evening.
pleased to present to you Zachary Matarosian. Zachary comes to us from, Zachary recently completed all the phases for a full-time police officer position. He comes to us as a police officer from 2013, where he started as a police officer in Oakham. He then went to Barre, Massachusetts, where he also got promoted there. He's a sergeant. I'm asking that he be appointed effective August 23rd, so he can give a proper notice, just the way the completion of the background fell. He wanted to give a full notice to Barry, so I'm asking that he be appointed tonight with an effective date of the 23rd at a starting rate of $32.95 per hour.
Okay, does the board have any questions of Zachary or the chief? Zachary, did your father ever work for the Sturbridge Police?
My grandfather did.
Oh.
But way back.
Oh, my
But the
God.
question is, did he go to third grade?
No, he didn't.
It's an exclusive club.
That's the fire department.
Well, coincidentally, the last full-time police officer we just hired recently is Nicholas Matarosian, but no relation, one letter off in the last name.
Oh,
When I looked at it, I was like, is this guy again?
well, tell your father I made him younger than he is. Grandfather.
And he just retired. Fran Matarosian just retired, yep.
Oh, he was a good guy. Still is, I'm sure. Okay, so do we have a motion?
I will make the motion to confirm the appointment of Zachary Maradorosian as a full-time police officer with the Sturbridge Police Department, effective August 23rd, 2021, with an hourly rate of $32.95.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor?
Thank
Okay,
you. Have a good evening.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Welcome aboard.
Okay, next on the agenda, consideration and possible action on the completion of the purchase of 137, 133, 139 Fisk Hill Road, 48 Old Farm parcels. Old Farm Road parcels. Any comments, Jeff?
Just the attorney, Sharon Everett with KP Law, asked that the motion be read as stated in the memo. For the record, please.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments? Somebody want to make that motion?
I will make that motion. I move pursuant to the vote taken under Article 49 of the June 7th, 2021 special town meeting to acquire the properties located at 133, 137, and 139 Fisk Hill Road and at 48 Old Farm Road for the purposes stated in said article, and to execute and to authorize the Chair of the Board of Selectmen to execute on behalf of the Board any and all acceptances, affidavits, settlements, statements, and other documents necessary or appropriate to accomplish the foregoing acquisition.
I will second that.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, Jeff, I mentioned this to you earlier, and it will save Alex some work. When we get something like this, takes up a lot of trees. We probably don't really need it all. What we used to do
There's a lot of death certificates in here.
back a ways, there would be one report, and if any of the selectmen wanted to read it, they could come in and read it, you know, because there's a lot of, I mean, we're just basically approving town meeting vote, and it went by council, so,
Okay.
okay. Save you the trouble. Okay. Next, we have consideration and possible action on the approval of Agronomy Farm Vineyard as a vendor for the farmer's market. Is anyone here from them or farmer's market?
Is there anyone here from Agronomy Farms? Agronomy Farm Vineyard? I know the applicant is going to be online this evening. I don't know. Maybe she's not here. This is a request of the farmer's market to approve this vendor contingent upon the Department of Ag's permit. They are a returning vendor.
Right, I think the letter from Caitlin explains it well. It's nice to know they have people available to work. Okay, any questions from the board? Somebody want to make the motion then?
I'll make the motion to approve Agronomy Farm or Vineyard as a vendor for the Sturbridge Farmers Market for the remainder of the season, contingent upon receipt of their MDAR approval.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor? This is just on the,
Farmers market.
Agronomy.
Yeah.
okay.
Good wine.
Okay, next we have consideration and possible action on the appointment of a Board of Selectmen delegate and alternate to the Central Mass Regional Planning. Selectman Supranat had been, and Mary Dowling was the alternate. Is there anybody willing?
What's the commitment?
They usually meet 4 times a year.
What the hell, I'll do it.
Okay, somebody want to nominate Jamie?
I will nominate Selectman Goodwin to fill the CMRPC position.
Is there a second?
I will.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You
No,
started.
no, you do the honors.
You're the backup. Yeah, so I will second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, now, Mary, you still willing to be the alternate?
Yes, I will go when Jamie cannot attend. Let me add that Mike never missed, okay?
Well, I was never that good at attending in school either.
He even went to extra meetings.
Is that something that any of us could attend if
Yes,
both of
I
them were
was gonna
tied up? I mean,
suggest-
I would go to fill in, but I
Yeah,
can't.
Well, it's a
We-
voting board.
Okay, so it has to be a
So-
delegate, yeah.
Someone has to be there to vote. That's, and they need an appointed.
Authorized by us.
Yes. I usually attend, but I can't vote.
But you can definitely go if you wanted to.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's public.
Right, right,
Just to
right,
see.
right.
Yeah. Okay, somebody want to make a motion to appoint Mary the alternate?
I'll make the motion to appoint Mary as the alternate.
Second that.
Okay, discussion? All in favor? Okay, now we do need to appoint a second delegate.
Well, I think there's some confusion. The planning board appoints their own delegates.
Yeah, well, they appoint one. I know, this is, it gets confused
It
every
gets
year.
confusing, so I think you have your alternate and your delegate, and they have their alternate and their delegate, so we should be well represented.
Yeah, because, well, that's true, but it says one delegate is appointed by the planning board.
Right, and they have
Delegate
selected,
must be a member of the planning board.
yeah, the planning board has appointed their delegate.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw that. Okay, so as long as we're represented.
Yep,
But it's always confusing when Central Mass writes it that way.
yep.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have a request to confirm the appointment of Kelly Emerick to the Sturbridge Community Preservation Committee with the term expiring on June 30th, 2024. Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to confirm the reappointment of Kelly Emerick to the Sturbridge Community Preservation Committee with a term expiring on June 30th, 2024.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, next, we have a
She here?
shared streets grant, Burgess Sidewalk. Jeff, you want to run through it quickly, please?
Yes, and Butch is here this evening to answer other questions, and maybe Butch can talk about the sidewalk and what we're accomplishing with this a little bit.
Yeah, it's a small grant, and they had it's very specific as to what you need to do, and one of the things that was, they needed was, due to the COVID, they've been unloading and loading students in the back of the school in a different way than they usually do, and when they do, it drops onto this grassy area. The sidewalk is adjacent, but it's like 6 feet away, and then there's this grassy area in between, so we've applied for a grant. Burgess actually asked me to work on this when I first got here, to do something to get this paved, and we never really figured out what we wanted to do. But now with this grant, we can actually extend the sidewalk over to the curb line, so now the kids will be able to step off the bus onto a solid concrete sidewalk and not into the grassy area. So we got $35,000 to do that, and that was what the quote was, so it's perfect. So.
Okay.
Make the snow clearance easier.
Questions from the board?
Yeah, much easier.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion then?
I'll make a motion to accept the proposal from MEC Morse for $35,350, $35,000 paid for out of the grant and $350 paid out of the road paving budget, and authorize the chair to sign the contract on behalf of the town.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor? Okay, next on the agenda, we have a request for a taxi cab livery license for Timothy Tucker at Charles River Service, Inc., doing business as Sturbridge Car Service. Is anyone here? Could you come sit, please? Okay, could you please introduce yourself?
I'm Timothy Tucker.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Tucker? I see we actually have the make and models of the cars this time. Has this been run by the chief of police, Jeff? Oh, still waiting? Okay, so we can contingent. Okay, no questions then? Somebody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I will. I'll accept the application for Timothy Tucker for a taxi cab livery license at Charles River Service, Inc., contingent upon chief of police approval and paying application fee.
Okay, we really should change that except to approve. We've already accepted the application,
Okay.
so,
Change to approve.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay.
All set?
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a
a good night.
request to approve the list of election workers for 2021, 2022. They include Tim Bardsley, Chris Castendike, Nancy Castendike, Joan Chamberlain, Mary Ellen Comerford, Elaine Cook, Marie Dubray, Patricia Howard, Suzanne Murphy, Christina Knight, Robert Knight, Barbara Mattioli, Patricia Roy, Susan Schwartz, Beverly Spreeman, Ronald Steitzel, Diane Trapasso, Chris Wilson, Barbara Steitzel, Lucite Favreau, Cheryl Economist, Nancy Santulli Force, and Janet Ray Sinane. So do we have a motion to approve those?
I move to approve the names the chair just listed to work as 2020, 2022 election workers for the town clerk.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, discussion? All in favor? Okay. Okay, next we have a letter of resignation from Amanda Normanden from the Design Review Committee. Does anybody want to make a motion then to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation with regret.
I'll second Chase's motion.
Okay, discussion? All in favor? Okay. Okay, next we have a change of manager for Uno Restaurants LLC on their liquor license. Is anyone here from?
Chris is on the line, I think. Says right there.
Is anyone here from Uno on their liquor license?
Hi, this is Chris Brown. I apologize in advance. The only person I can really hear is yourself. Everybody else is pretty muffled.
Oh, okay. So we need, all right, we're here to talk about change of manager. You want to kind of tell us what's going on in terms of one manager to another?
Yeah, the prior general manager, Nicholas Vivalli, has left the company. He now resides in South Carolina, currently working for a different company. Myself, I actually I was part of the opening team of Sturbridge Uno back in 2000. Been with the company 21 years. Most recently, I had run the Westboro, Mass location until the opportunity came up to come back home. I jumped right on that, so I'm back home.
Okay, any questions from the board? Okay, somebody want to make a motion then?
I'll make a motion on the change of manager to Chris Brown for Uno Restaurant.
Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Discussion? All in favor? Okay, Chris, you're all set?
Thank you. Have a great night.
Yes, you too. Okay, next on the agenda, old business. Jeff, your COVID update?
Yes, Madam Chair and Board, thank you. There's no further action from the State Board of Health or local Board of Health on masks or COVID, although we do know that the Delta variant is a challenge in the nation right now. Moving on to the second topic are the Arpa Funds, which is the second batch of federal dollars that are going to flow to local governments. We did receive word last week that those county funds, the funds that would have been distributed to a functioning county, will be distributed to the towns in Massachusetts that aren't in functioning counties. So we'll receive half of those funds either this week or next, which will make our total distribution about 1.5 million for the year. We'll receive the second half of those funds next year, which leads to, once we understand how much money we need for the budget and some of those other items we've discussed for the use of those funds, that frees up those dollars for the rest of the year for other projects. So at some point, you heard a little bit about from Terry on some planning money or planning hours we got from the state for recovery funds. That's, some information we can use, but at this point, we can go forward with some kind of planning locally on what we want to do with some of those dollars that are not consumed during the fiscal year or we don't have allocations for, earmarks for.
I see Mary's hand up.
No, because I had asked to talk about it just briefly. Oh, that's good that we know when it's coming. No, I know, Jeff, you had said that you and the department heads had some ideas that you were going to share with us, but you wanted to make sure the county money was coming. I know, I'd just like to maybe make a motion that, or suggest that they come like maybe mid-September, because I'd like a little time for us to kind of think about them. I don't want to wait necessarily till the money's in hand. I mean, a lot of towns are starting to plan already. I know the city of Worcester already is planning on committing and I know they're getting much more money, I get it, but they're planning on like 10.5 million to rehabilitate their city parks. They're adding basketball courts and cameras and lighting and a parking lot to a beach. They're adding dugouts for baseball and softball. So it would be nice if the department heads, I know you had suggested, or you give us a memo, and then we should have a conversation in terms of policy where we might like to see some of these funds go. And then I noticed too, and I didn't have time to prepare to the extent I wanted to, but I like to watch the local access channel, Spectrum 1 in the morning, because it's very local, and some cities, I think it was Pittsfield, Chicopee, Worcester, this is something to think about, according to Spectrum, and I didn't look at them yet, actually put surveys on their website requesting input from residents in terms of where they think they would like to see some of this ARPA money going. And I thought that really engages residents in a way they don't normally are engaged. They're not engaged when we come up with our budget. So I don't know if we all want to look at those surveys and see if that's something that we might like to put up. Because when I saw what Worcester's doing with active recreation, 10.5 million, maybe we could do something, so.
Worcester's a little different in how that's used in those are great ideas.
Yep.
And I think, some communities are having public hearings. When you're going to use it for those types of projects, it has to be in portions of your community impacted by COVID. So those are targeted to neighborhoods that have a disproportionate impact due to COVID.
Okay.
And that's how that money's being allocated in Worcester. That was the city manager's plan. Now they're going to a public hearing process in Worcester to get other community feedback. And that's a possibility for you all too, to have a public hearing sometime to gather community input You can
I would
put it on a
support
website.
that. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to engage residents more in the whole.
Well-
And now we're at substantial risk, so, we're not even in the moderate, right? We're high, what do they say, high, substantial, moderate, low?
So there's
So maybe some of the money, I mean, I don't know, it's worth looking into.
I agree. I think gathering up some community input on the use of these dollars, particularly from the business community, and see, where the needs are. I think that's a very positive thing for the board to do.
Okay, so Jeff, would it be feasible then to put a survey online?
We'll take a look at that and see how that works. SurveyMonkey is always a tool we can use, but we can engage with our IT staff and Alex and see how we can do that. Sure.
Right. And then, I do agree with Mary that we do need to look at the input from residents, but also from the departments. And the board here can also send in suggestions.
Absolutely.
To Jeff, and he can just add it to the list.
Yeah,
That way,
absolutely.
That'll be a lot of input.
And Jeff, if I'm understanding Terry's report correctly from earlier, we're hoping that the hotel spending in the summer is going to normalize, correct? So, if the restaurant spending is normalized, then we'll have a more static or stable budget, theoretically, to look at what revenue we've also lost to make these decisions. Does that sound about right?
For next year.
Yeah, for next year.
Yeah, so what happened with the ARPA funds in the budget, you had to undertake what's called a counterfactual budget, which means, given where you were before COVID, and based upon certain assumptions, like a growth factor and everything else, how much did you lose from COVID? And most towns going through that counterfactual process have an opportunity to use much more than what they actually lost. Our number was $1.4 million in a counterfactual situation, when really we were somewhere between $800,000 and $900,000. So going into next year, you hope that those revenue streams, when you add in the RV park, which really is an impact from COVID, at all, you normalize, so your number's much lower, but you're right.
Yeah, okay.
So the second year impact on these dollars should be less than the 8 to 9 we're anticipating now, if that's the number. Finance is still working out what the true number is, and we won't know until we set a tax rate.
Okay.
Nice. I mean, maybe we can get the staff's input and everything before we come up with our list. I kind of want to ruminate on theirs and then supplement, because we could be redundant.
Well, nothing.
I mean, I just don't want to reinvent I just would like to have something from them
Well,
as well.
that's true, but that's waiting a little bit longer. I mean, we can give ours at the same time. I mean, if it's double, we'll just delete one.
Well, there's really just 4 broad categories
Yeah.
that you can use the money for. Impacts, addressing impacts due to COVID, water, sewer, broadband,
Yeah.
impacts to the business community, and I forget the 4th one. But
Public
Premium
health.
pay for
And
essential
you-
workers.
what is it?
It's premium pay.
Premium pay for essential workers.
And where did these parks fall into those 4 broad categories in Worcester? What would
I
that
think,
come under?
again, that's impacts due to COVID, those neighborhoods that they're.
No, I know, but, I thought you said it has to fall even within the neighborhoods under one of those 4.
It does, and so
Okay.
they're addressing community impacts due to COVID, so that's how they're relating those two things. And again, they're a direct grant city, so they may have gotten a little different take on the matter.
And in terms of the Commonwealth spending on this, Jeff, so I would assume that they have a large amount of money to disperse as well. Is that, any of that, other than the schools, obviously, which would be schools, do we have any expectations of additional additional money, let's just, is a better word, coming from that?
We believe so.
Yeah.
That there's other programs and opportunities that will be available from the pot of COVID money that has flowed to the states. There'll be opportunities for direct grant opportunities. In addition, you've now seen the $1 trillion federal infrastructure plan. If that gets passed, we anticipate that there'll be substantial dollars for local units of government. So in the future, there's going to be opportunities for a lot of funding for projects at the local level, we believe, in addition to the ARPA funds. So,
Okay.
but again, I agree, we should put a list together and see how we can match a need with a funding source, right?
Anything else on
I'm
that
ready.
from the board? Okay, so next under old business, before we take the boards, we have the Equine Center / racetrack update. Jeff, you want to go through that?
Yes, and the Equine Center folks are here this evening to make us kind of a presentation on where they're at. I would ask a question of the board. We can show the slideshow on the screen behind you, if you would like, and you can watch it on the screens in front of you, if that's okay, so the public can see it.
Skip the slideshow.
You're going to skip the slideshow?
We're going to just use the handouts.
You're just going to use the handouts, and I
Keep
spent...
it simple.
I spent minutes upon minutes making sure it worked.
I kind of like the slides.
I know, right?
Nobody can say that.
This is-
Can we bring some chairs?
If you guys don't mind, we have about 15 minutes. I don't know if you want to take a quick break or if that,
Does anybody want a break?
okay, great.
We're tough.
We'll be quick.
And you're going to have to share that microphone, and please, whoever's speaking,
Move it around.
move it around, and introduce yourselves for the board, please.
Yes.
Just as a lead-in, and I'll let them introduce their team. Jonathan Silverstein with KP is here this evening representing the town in our relationship with the development of the zoning bylaw and the host community agreement. He'll probably have some comments after the presentation. Also, in your packet is the most current form of the zoning bylaw, which both sides, at least at the staff level, believe are ready for public hearing before the planning board. You have a draft host community agreement. There's actually a revised one that's on the dais this evening based upon comments from Jonathan. And you've got some slides and some other information and an economic analysis of the park or the project. So,
What page is the zoning? If we have such a big packet, I look,
the zoning bylaw is on page
Starts on 556.
556. All right.
thank you.
And the host agreement's right after
Yeah.
that.
If there's no more questions, I'll ask the group to kind of introduce themselves and
Hey, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name's Karen Davis. I'm here with Richard Fields. He is one of the owner of the project, and my partner, Bob George, from George and Davis. We also have some of our architects with us tonight. If you guys have any questions specific for them, we have Greg Haas here and John. John, I'm sorry, I can't remember your last name.
John Zubilla.
There you go. So I know this is a project that's been in the works for a number of years, and I want to go back a little bit and give you a little bit of history. About 2 years ago, Armin Jinjigian and his wife Robin had come into our office, and Armin had a dream to create a space for horses, and he wanted to have a place where horses could race, where they could retire, where they could exercise. He also wanted to create an equine center for the community to interact with the horses, therapy lessons, riding lessons, and also an educational piece to that to sort of educate the community on the equines. Shortly after Richard Fields, who's sitting here with me today, he became involved in this project. And Richard also has the same love for horses, but Richard has a passion for the land, for the environment, for the agriculture, and he's brought that to this project. So for 2 years, we've been working on this. I know we talked to you guys during COVID at some point. We've done a lot of work on this. We've listened to what the community has to say, and I think this is an opportunity of a lifetime for Sturbridge. Now, Bob and I got involved in the project, and there are two important things that we wanted to make sure were considered in this project. We wanted to know what the concerns of the town were, and also we wanted to know what the benefits of this project were going to be for our community. So there's two mechanisms that we believe we've put in place to take into consideration these. The first is the overlay zone that you guys have in front of you. Now, this overlay zone only allows for a racetrack and equine amenities. Everything else that's going to take place up at that site, you are going to have oversight on, and this is what the overlay zone does for you. It has a site plan reviews in it, it has a special permitting in it, it has traffic studies in it. Everything in that overlay zone was created so that the town could be a partner with us in this project. Now, our plan is to have 10 races and 10 other events up at this site. That means there's 345 days that the community can use this site for. So all of those farmers markets, art exhibits, 4-H club, Boys and Girls Club, all of those will be available to our residents with your oversight. because that's what the overlay zone does for you and does for our community. The second thing that we have in front of you is the host community agreement, and that's the document that talks about what the benefits to us are going to be. So one of the needs that we know, I've been a longtime resident of Sturbridge, is that we need some recreation space. So in our host community agreement, we are ready to either provide 1.5 million to the rec committee to use, or if there's something we can do up on the site, we're going to do that too. Now, we've briefly met with Annie. We're meeting with the committee on Wednesday, and we're going to find out what the rec committee feels is important here. So we're prepared to do that, okay? The other thing is the amenities that's going to be available up here. There's going to be community gardens, if that's what you want. There's going to be a real focus on agriculture up there. We're going to have, Richard might talk about his ag in the classroom, where we're going to partner with the schools to bring kids up to learn about the food chain. There's also a biodigester that we're looking into, so that this will be a completely green site. We will have zero carbon impact on the community. The other thing that is, I put into the category of amenities, is on page 2 of your presentation. I want to point out where this site is. I think most of you know where it is, but I think it's important to know it is on the east side of Route 84, between the Holland exit and I believe the first Mashpog Road exit. Now, we have had many conversations about access to this site. This site is going to be accessed by an interchange on 84. This site is not going to be accessed by Breakneck Road. In addition to that, we will provide access to the trucks that are currently driving up and down Breakneck Road to come in and out of the recycling center off of 84. So not only are we not going to use Breakneck Road, but we're going to minimize the current traffic on it, okay? And then the last thing I want to touch on is economic benefits. So this project will bring in annually $1 million in revenue and benefits to this town. It will bring in 100 jobs, and during construction, it will bring in approximately 500 jobs. So financially, economic benefit, jobs for our community, access to the site for people to go and have picnics, to work in the garden, to bring their kids to horse lessons. All of this is available to our community through this project. Now, I can say that I am very proud to be a part of this. We've worked very hard on it for 2 years. We have an exceptional team of architects, engineers, wetlands experts, and what I consider visionaries that have been a part of this project. I think the most important thing that I want to convey to you as the board and the people that we're looking to partner with is that working with Richard Fields, I have learned that he is a man of his word. This is a very complicated project. We have hit a lot of bumps in the road, and every time we hit that, we've gone to Richard and we've explained the situation, and he's put together this team who have come back with solutions. And I believe that if you partner with Richard in this project, that is how it's going to go today and all the way through. He will work with us hand in hand to bring the community what is an exceptional opportunity. So with that, I'm going to give Richard a chance to talk to you a little bit about our vision. Okay?
Thank you. Let me move over here a little bit. Thank you, Karen. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great.
The mic is actually for the audience at home.
Oh, okay.
But they'll need
Thank
to
you.
hear you if you want to get close.
Good evening, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. On behalf of my partner, Armand, who I know many of you have met over the time, and his wife, Robin, and myself, we really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to be able to discuss and share with you our vision for this, I think, potentially spectacular project. When a project like this begins, you need to start with an inspiration. And interestingly enough, Armand had this inspiration early on for a horse park. And when we became involved, we looked to an inspiration, and the inspiration is really Saratoga. So when you think about what we are trying to do and all of the amenities that Karen mentioned, the fact is, think Saratoga. This is going to be a family-oriented park that has equine events, it has agricultural events, and recreational events. So the way to look at this is, from my standpoint, is there are three silos. You know, the architects refer to them maybe as pillars, three major pillars, but from an ag standpoint, I look at it as a silo. So the first silo would be a horse-related activities. And we are planning to build a thoroughbred racetrack. It'll be a mile long, and our commitment is obviously to build the best and safest racetrack in the United States. There will be a clubhouse and a sports bar, part of the project. As Karen mentioned, there will be 100 jobs created immediately. We assume that most of these jobs will be for local residents. The project will have probably 10 race days that we've been talking about, as well as 10 days that are, I'm going to refer to as festival races, festival activities that are horse-related. Think Saratoga. You know, think about the picnic area. In our mind, this project is the kind of thing where you go, you spend the day, you have horse-related activities, you can have some ag-related activities, and recreational that I'm going to discuss in a minute. So from the horse standpoint, our position is we will have all sorts of amenities as far as horses are concerned. We believe that horses are as American as apple pie. They're very important to the fabric of the country. They're important to this Commonwealth. There are some studies that there are maybe as many as 30,000, 40,000 horses that are residing in Massachusetts, and many of them are in this community. Our position is, and our goal, is to get people involved in the love of horses. And so there will be riding and lessons available. There will be demonstrations available. There'll be a rehab program. There's going to be, actually, Armin's wife her passion is about the rescue and the rehab of horses. And then there will be an element of therapeutic riding, which is something that is really important to all of us. And we plan probably to be an adjunct and partner with some of the local farms that are doing great work in the therapeutic riding area. So one silo is horses. The other silo that I'd like to discuss is the ag. And agricultural is very important to me. I have my personal feeling is that, my philosophy is that part of the issues that we have in this society now is because we have lost our connection to the earth. We've lost our connection to the dirt. And so what we are going to try to do is reinstate, as Karen mentioned, a program that actually my family and I began years ago out west, which was Ag in the Classroom. We're going to partner with the local schools, try to get the kids back to understanding the process of what it takes to create the food that we all are eating, and give them an opportunity to go back on the farms. So from an agricultural standpoint, there will be an area where there will be a community garden, there'll be an opportunity to have a farmer's market, there's going to be a whole beekeeping operation I think that the kids will really enjoy, to understand the cycle of pollination and what that means. And then in your packet, you see something called Farm Power. And Farm Power is really fascinating. It's a production now that started maybe about a decade ago. Actually, I did something like this similar maybe 15 years ago with Willie Nelson on a biodiesel project down in Texas. But now, this came out of MIT. There are 4 or 5 of these operations now on farms in Massachusetts. And what this is it is a project and a possibility where you take waste from farms, mainly manure, waste from restaurants, and they actually create out of that clean energy. And so from the project standpoint, the project will be completely green, self-sufficient, and produce enough energy through this bio project that we will not only be able to power ourselves, but we will also there'll be excess power if the community wishes to obtain it. And then we have the recreational piece. And as Karen mentioned, we have listened to the community. The community has been very clear that you have been attempting to redevelop your athletic facilities, your fields. So we have made a commitment to contribute $1,500,000 towards the redevelopment of your athletic fields. On the other hand, we also have, you could see in your handout, we have a parcel of land that is available for recreational facilities. And we plan to meet, I think you said on Wednesday, we're going to meet with your recreation committee on Wednesday, discuss with them what they think the right recommendations would be, and clearly follow their lead. So, you know, from our standpoint, I would like to say the following. If you give us the opportunity to partner with you in this community, the most important thing from our standpoint is to create a project that is quintessential Sturbridge, and something that you and all of us will be proud to be part of for generations to come. And I really appreciate your time, and I'd like to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, questions from the board?
Yeah, I have one. To start, when you said farm power, are you getting at farming methane? I mean,
It's a biodigester. It's the biodigester program, and actually, we're going out to visit it in person at one of the farms that is operating. I think.
Gene Blueburn's coming with us, I think.
Is Gene coming with us?
I think it's on Tuesday. The 25th. Yeah.
It's an amazing situation. It's really amazing situation because it takes all of the waste out of a farm, especially out of these dairy farms, where I think 4 of them are operating now, and takes the extra waste out of the restaurants, and instead of being basically in your sewer system, it goes into this process, produces clean energy. And actually, in the farm that we are going to visit, we've been told that there is enough energy being produced to run the entire operation and have excess energy over, that the town has the ability to purchase and make available to their residents at a discount. So it's a spectacular idea.
If I might just jump in here briefly. One of the things I want to just also mention about the overlay zone is that it has what's allowed, which is very limited. It has what's allowed by special permit, and then it has what's not allowed. Number 1 in that list is gaming outside of the simulcast in the sports betting. Slot machines, casinos can never be on that site. I know there's been some confusion in town about that, but this is not a casino. It is not going to have any slot machines. There's going to be only the gambling, only the gaming that's allowed via simulcast in sports betting. And the business model for this is that somewhere between 80 and 90% of the betting at this site happens in the living rooms of people around the state. It doesn't happen at the site. Most of the betting happens off the site. So I just want to make sure that's very clear. And I'd also like to note that what we're presenting here to you guys today is a concept, not a finished product. We're in the middle of this process. We're not at the end of this process. If you guys decide to partner with us, what comes next is what you guys want to come next. We have given you, really, the keys to this project. We will not be able to do anything without your input, your guidance, and your control. That's the way we have this structured with the overlay zone and with the host community agreement. There's all kinds of studies we'll have to do, there's boards we'll have to go in front of. So this is not, again, this is a concept that we are asking you guys to consider. Now, I would also just like to add that, in terms of this concept, I guess I disagree with Karen, which always makes me nervous when I say that.
Here we go.
This is not,
Watch out for Thanksgiving here.
This is not once in a lifetime. Towns never get this kind of opportunity. This is the kind of opportunity that most towns never get to see. I believe very strongly in this. So I grew up in Sturbridge. I raised my kids here. And I just see this project as fitting in with everything that's exceptional about Sturbridge. OSB, our restaurants, our trail system, it adds, it supplements to all of those. It can make us the best town we can be, I believe. So, again, please, any questions you have, we're here to, hear your input. And
Okay, questions?
I have one more. What's this? Oh, go ahead, Mary. Sorry.
No, you finish.
No. What's the status of the sports betting laws right now? Huh?
I said I was going to bring up the sports betting. It passed the House.
That's a great question.
I don't know if it passed the Senate yet.
It's a terrific question. Right now, we're under the impression that the sports betting legislation is working its way through the state legislature. I think there is a bill that came out of the House. It's being considered by the Senate, I think, when they come back after recess. But this project could not have been presented to you and cannot go forward without sports betting. There's been many studies done about thoroughbred racetracks in the United States, and none of them can survive without some form of support, and usually from casino revenues. Even, by the way, Saratoga, that was losing upwards of $40 million a year, is subsidized by gaming that is coming out of Aqueduct. Our business model is based upon the sports betting legislation passing. So we have taken the position in the last 2 years. It's a risky position, it's expensive position, but we have taken the position that sports betting will pass the state legislature. And that is why we need to be in a situation now where we are ready to go when everyone else does. Because there is a sense that they're going to try to pass the legislation sometime in the fall, and then all of the licenses that are granted will be able to go live at the same time. So to that extent, we've done a lot of work, architectural work, engineering work, but we're also preparing our gaming and racing licenses so that we can be on the playing field at the same time as everyone else. Does that answer your question, though?
It does. I do have a couple of follow-ups.
No, go ahead.
Can we speak in the?
Oh, my apologies. So how many licenses do we have any idea are going to be issued within the state? As I could imagine.
I'm not sure if you can hear me. I don't at this point. There are, a lot of theories about it, but I think that there have been studies that have shown that a certain number of licenses, the fewer licenses, and they refer to them in this industry as skins, but the fewer of those licenses would be better for the Commonwealth in general and for all of the operators.
Also, I believe one of those licenses would be reserved for a racetrack.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that.
And
It's mine a little point that I forgot to mention. Oh, by the way.
But the other thing is, and I forgot to say this, why are we here tonight, in addition to providing information, is we have a deadline for submitting our application to the Gaming Commission of October 1st. We've worked as quickly and as hard as we could to get this to you in a timely manner, but we have a pretty tight schedule. And we would be asking tonight for you to schedule a public hearing on August 30th on the HCA, and also on your vote to approve or not approve the location. The Gaming Commission requires, as part of its packet, that the Selectmen approve the location.
There's no meeting on August 30th. We've talked about that.
Well, I don't know if we could have a special meeting or...
Well, that's up to them, but that's nothing we've talked about as a special meeting.
Well, again, it's a very tight time frame. We're looking to get a public hearing as soon as we can. We know we have a lot of obstacles to overcome, but again, it's been a very complicated project with a lot of moving parts. We got here as quickly as we could, and in order for this to happen, we do need to get that meeting scheduled as soon as possible.
Jamie, may I, Chair? Are you set, Jamie?
Thank you.
Okay, no, I was going to bring up the sports betting, too. I think, I've been following it, I think it passed the House overwhelmingly, but the Senate has its own bill. I guess my understanding, you would know a lot more than me, but that they're disagreeing over college betting. The House bill allowing it and the Senate bill not allowing it. Read it yourself. I don't want anybody to take this as gospel. In the event that college betting is not allowed in Massachusetts, are you still going to move forward if it's no college betting?
Oh, our position is that once the legislation is finalized, and if it is finalized and passed, we prepare to move forward, whatever the final legislation is.
Okay, and draft of the community host agreement, is this something you've been working on with Jeff or town council, or is this your draft, or who's been negotiating this on behalf of the town?
We got it for the first draft last week. Town council gave them some parameters months ago about that, but we got the first draft last week, and Jonathan provided comments immediately, so you have a revised draft that has been at the staff level on the dais this evening.
Okay. So I know you've already said you have a love of horses, and you need the racing to make it economically feasible for you to have a place where horses go and retire. I think I'm paraphrasing from the first meeting that we had, or something like that. And I don't know what happened, but somewhere you said the amount of events that you're going to have, was it 12 or
10 races.
10 races or 6 weeks? Or
10, I'm going to say, I would say horse-related festival events. Just kind of think of the inspiration of, if you're at Saratoga.
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be events that will show the community, the joy and excitement of being involved with horses. But you'd only have 10 thoroughbred races.
Okay, and I think I had asked this before, I just want to know if the answer is the same. Would you contractually agree in a host agreement with respect to the maximum amount of races you would have? And I'll ask it for the first, I had asked it before, and I just going to ask it again.
Hear what you guys want.
Yeah.
If you want us to consider that, then we would look for that feedback for
Okay.
what you were talking about for numbers. And, we've tried really hard to put in front of you, one, the ability to control this project, because it's a big project, and we want to make sure Sturbridge has control over it. But we also put in front of you, I think, in the host community agreement, some real solid benefits to the community. If there's something more that you want us to put in there, then we'll hear what that is.
Okay, thank you. Because I had
That's an interesting question.
well, I had asked it, and then you'd have to go back to the minutes. I had asked it of the other owner.
Armin.
Yes, who was before us. And he indicated that that was not something he could limit because of the economic reality of maybe you would need more races than that. So I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but when you say there's only going to be 10 a year, unless there's an agreement with the town that there's only 10 races a year, we can't legally, and I'm not saying you're going to do this, but you may decide, you know what, 10's not doing it for us, we're going to have 30. And unless it's in a host agreement, there's nothing really the town can do. So I didn't know if you were open to limiting the actual amount of races
That's a
per
very good
year.
question. Let me see if I can answer it. I think when you met with Armin, that was a time that was prior to the state considering sports betting legislation, and I was not involved in the project at that time, right? It was very early.
Well, it was early, but he also made clear at that it would be dependent upon, so he also envisioned sports betting at that time as well, because he said it wouldn't move forward without sports betting, that you would need it.
Interestingly enough, the number 10 has actually come to us from the horsemen, because the reality is that there aren't enough horses out there in the universe now to have a robust racing schedule. So the 10 races a year was really coming from the breeders and the horsemen in the state. I'm open to any conversation with you that would make you comfortable as Karen.
Not me personally, I'm only one member of the board, but.
Whatever makes, the town comfortable is something that we'd be interested in talking to.
It's also very highly regulated. The
Oh, I
racing-
understand.
And so we have to submit applications to the racing committee ourselves, and they regulate what we do as well. So there's like 3 layers of regulation. There's you guys, there's the racing committee, and then there's the gaming commission. So everything about this project has oversight from various committees.
But they're not going to oversight the amount of races. That would happen to be at the local level,
No,
I don't want to.
That's part of your application with the gaming and the racing committee.
Oh, they also could limit the amount of
They
races?
oversee everything, including the operation. They oversee everything.
Yeah, because I had asked
And
for an
they're on
outline
site.
of.
And they're on site, by the way. They have somebody on site. They oversee everything on But I'd like to address something that I may have misunderstood what you said. The racing is not an economic driver. The thoroughbred racing is not something that you need to do to generate revenue. The thoroughbred racing is something that you do to help the breeders and help the entire industry. But it is not a moneymaker. We will look to sports betting to be the underpinning economically of what this project is. So I would not, I'm personally not looking, and neither are the horsemen looking, to really race more than 10 days. It's not something you need to do for a financial successful operation, right? And I think it's important to realize also is that, I think as Karen or Bob said, is that most of the revenue that comes into this project will be generated throughout the state as people are basically working off their mobile devices. And that's what's happening in every state. So the revenue that is being generated for this project will be happening off-site. And that, by the way, in every state, the research shows that that's somewhere between 80 and 92% of the revenue actually comes from away from whatever the project is. So we will have a sports bar that is going to be basically a turf club and sports bar. But from our standpoint, 8 to 10% of the revenue is going to come from there. It's certainly not going to come from thoroughbred racing.
If I may, that's because of that fact, and that was kind of the understanding going in, the zoning ordinance requires them to race at least 6 times over 18 months. We didn't want this just to be a way to sports bet. We wanted this to actually be the vision that they're presenting the town and the amenities and all those other things. So rather than capping the number of races, because the economics isn't in the racing, it's in the sports betting, we actually put a requirement that they hold a certain number of races over a period of time.
Somewhat, yeah, I guess I was coming at it from a different perspective. So I know you said you love horses, which is wonderful. What kind of safeguards are you going to have in place to ensure that these horses are not drugged? Because the racing industry doesn't have not you personally, but the best reputation with respect to horse treatment. I mean, Peter, the animal rights activists are not pro-horse racing in terms of the life of a horse. It's not known to be a good life, at least. Let me just put it out there.
I'm so glad you asked the question.
Okay, good. Will you have something in place to ensure that they're not drugged?
Here's the way to look at it.
Anti-doping.
No, look, I'm thrilled you asked.
Oh, good, thank you.
So, when I was involved with Suffolk Downs, when it was operational, I instituted the first anti-slaughter program at any racetrack in America, which gives you an idea of how I view the relationship between the horse and the owners. I also instituted the strictest anti-doping program available, and our internal operations exceeded even NYRA's. So the way you have to look at this is that my partner and his wife have been breeders and horse folks in Massachusetts for 50 years. I've been involved in the horse industry for quarter horse as well as thoroughbred for many years, and there has never been a scandal with either one of us, okay? And from my standpoint, I have zero tolerance, none. And you could ask anybody that has been involved at Suffolk with me, is that we were very serious about it. From the slaughter standpoint, from the anti-slaughter standpoint, we actually monitored the sales of any horses that were going to the auctions for slaughter. And if we caught anybody, we banned them for life from Suffolk Downs. On the other hand, what we said was, we're offering you the ability, we'll buy the horse from you. And we bought many horses. And what we did is when an owner couldn't afford or didn't want to keep the horse anymore, we bought that horse so it wouldn't go to slaughter. And then we retrained that horse and found new homes for him. And so I think when you look at, my history in the equine world and my partner's history, it's really clear, these are not just empty words. Everybody that deals with us know that we have zero tolerance. Now, I hope that answers, your concern.
Thank you for, and then just my last question. How many people do you envision going to one race? What is your business model call for in terms of being successful? What are you envisioning?
That's also a good question. I would say that in this area, we're going to have 10 races. So you have a limited number of races, and people will probably want to go to that. It's like Saratoga's model, which is a limited number of races, and therefore it could be successful. So I would say that, there'd be somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 people. That's our sense at a race. The days of 40,000 people coming to a race is really over.
And just to toot a little bit of our architects, in the plan, if you see, the way the ground is graded, we're going to actually build stadium seating right into the land so that we're not going to have metal seats. It's going to be very organic. And I think, Greg, is it 4,000 that seating can sit?
We can see about 3,000 people in those seats, and then there's an apron, which would be, another 1,000 people or so. But obviously, there's picnic grounds around, so those people can go and sit in the picnic grounds and watch the race as well. So it's very flexible.
So here's where I have to apologize. I should have introduced Greg and John. Greg is the president of the architectural and design firm. I've worked with these folks for over 20 years. They understand how to create places. They understand equine. They've done work for Saratoga. They've done some great work in Texas, interestingly enough. And I think as we get more involved, hopefully with you, you'll see some of the work that they've done, which is really extraordinary, really turning this into a family-friendly park. Sorry, Greg.
That it, Mary?
Yep, for now, yes.
Anyone else?
I'm going to have Jonathan come up and talk a little bit about the host community agreement.
Good evening.
Good evening. Pleasure to be here. So as Jeff indicated, the host community agreement draft came in late last week. I've been through it. I've had some preliminary conversations with the proponents, legal team, and very cooperative conversations. Obviously, what you have in front of you is not the final version of an agreement that will be presented for your approval. It might be helpful to talk about, I guess, two things now. One is who should be negotiating the agreement and what help the town might need. And the second would be timing. So on the first issue, I know some members of the board may remember I've helped the town in the past with other gaming-related issues. I've done a fair amount of gaming-related work. I've indicated to the applicant, I've spoken with Jeff about what I believe the town would benefit from, which is having a consultant review the business model, review the Spectrum studies, Spectrum Gaming, which prepared the economic impact reports, and to assist with the negotiation of the host community agreement. So the consultant I've worked with in the past is a fellow named Will Cummings. I worked with him in Plainville with respect to their harness racing and slot gaming project. I've worked with him in another other communities. He's a great resource for looking at the models. He understands the racing industry, the gaming industry, and he'll be able to provide some independent feedback on the economics of the project, as well as what's reasonable to look for with respect to the host community agreement. I've had some preliminary conversations with the applicant's legal team, and they seem open to funding that, and have put a provision in the draft host community agreement to that effect, although I think just timing-wise, which I'll get to in a moment, we're going to obviously need that funded in advance because we'll need it to finalize the host community agreement before it's executed. With respect to timing, as has been indicated, the deadline for the Gaming Commission application for the meeting license is October 1st. So the predicate to, or a predicate to the applicant being able to do that, get that application in, is this board, after a public hearing, voting to approve the location. Now, in a perfect world, you'd have every piece of information, you'd have 100% design and full traffic studies peer-reviewed before you approve the location, but in reality, that's really not possible. That level of expenditure and detail is never going to come before an applicant knows that zoning's in place, that they can get a license, and then they go through the final permitting process. You have protection there because this would be a special permit process before the planning board. That's a discretionary special permit, and there are a lot of protections built into the proposed zoning in front of you. So the first thing that will need to happen is for the board to decide whether or not to approve the location. And there'll be a little bit of taking on faith that the other procedures and protections in place will be adequate for the board to be comfortable giving a grant of location before you have 100% design, say, of the project. The next thing that would happen would be execution of a host community agreement. I don't see it as likely that you would have a full proposed host community agreement in place in the next 3 weeks. If we get Will Cummings on board, we engage in negotiation. It's a more involved procedure than a couple of weeks for him to be able to analyze the financials of the project and to give us meaningful feedback and for us to engage in the negotiation. So the timing, and obviously it's up to the board, but what I see as reasonably possible would be a public hearing on the approval of location, then execution of a final host community agreement, then the town meeting to approve the zoning, and then, of course, at some point in the future would be the planning board special permit process. And making sure at each step that the board is comfortable with the protections in place for the next step. Even if you approve the location, if you don't end up, that approval would be contingent on execution of a acceptable host community agreement. If you're not satisfied with the host community agreement, then that's the end of the story. If you execute a host community agreement, town meeting still has to be satisfied with what the information before in order to pass the zoning. If the zoning passes, there's still the significant discretionary permitting process before the planning board. So I just thought it'd be helpful to sort of give the board a little bit of an overview of what the next steps are in the process and what the reasonable timing might be. So I'm happy to answer any questions the board might have.
I guess I just have a couple in terms of understanding. So you're saying the host agreement is executed prior to the town meeting changing the 200 acres zoning. I'm just asking because, I mean, I don't know a lot about this process, but I would think that, I don't want to say waste our time, but like, why are we engaging in a lot of negotiations with a host agreement before we know whether the town wants to rezone 200 acres? It seems to me that wouldn't an alternative approach be to go to the town meeting, hear from the residents, if it passes, because it's got to be a 2/3 vote, I believe, because it's zoning.
That's right.
And then we come back and negotiate a host agreement because the town said, yes, we want to have an overlay district for an equine center and a racetrack. So I'm just wondering, because I know with cannabis, I think we rezoned, and it went through the zoning approval first,
Yeah.
and then we negotiated a host agreement once we knew that the zoning was in place, and now we're doing exactly the opposite. And it just, I don't know, it just didn't make that much sense to me, so maybe,
Sure, I know, I'm happy to speak
Shed
to
some
that.
light.
It's a great question. So I guess what's different between this process and cannabis is that when you approved cannabis zoning, you didn't have a specific project in mind. You had a more open-ended process. Here you have a very specific project, a specific site that's being proposed to be rezoned. And let me answer your question from two aspects. From a legal perspective, unlike, say, casino gaming, which required a host community agreement before the applicant could even go file an application with the Gaming Commission, that's not a requirement here. There's no requirement at all for a host community agreement. So what's the purpose being served by the host community agreement? It's to create contractual obligations that benefit the town, and to give the various entities in town that are going to have to make decisions to give them as much information as possible. So there's no legal obligation.
that was my question.
To do a host community agreement first, then town meeting. But I guess the question is, wouldn't town meeting like to know that there are commitments in place when it's making a decision as momentous as passing the zoning? That's a policy decision. It's
Right.
certainly up to the board, but
But it's not statutorily or
Absolutely not.
required by regulations.
That's right.
So a community could choose either approach, town meeting,
Absolutely.
and then host agreement at town meeting. Okay.
It's hard to wrap your brain around all of the things that are playing outside of this room, but there are a lot of things happening simultaneously. So we couldn't get to here until we knew that the gaming was going to come forward. The thing that I want to stress about the host community agreement is we want this in front of you so you can see what our intentions are. You know, I don't believe you're going to want to take away anything we've put on the table. You might want to add a couple of things, but I think what we've put on the table is a lot of benefit to the community. So we wanted that to be available to you so you could take that into consideration, that these are the benefits that are going to flow from this. The only thing we need from you is approval of the site to apply for our gaming license. So the host community agreement we can be working on all along, whether we get to it by town meeting or not, that will be up to how quickly the process moves. But what we do need from you is approval of the site in order for us to apply for the gaming license, which does require the public hearing. So I know it's a big ask, but I think it's worth pushing this a little bit harder to see what the community wants to do with it.
Okay, Jonathan, I have a question on the public hearing. We have the zoning bylaw, and two sections of it would be amending the zoning bylaw, map and everything, and in that it designates these parcels. So if the board votes to pass on the zoning amendment to the planning board, that would be in it, and the planning board always has public hearings on zoning.
correct.
So would that suffice, or do we specifically need to approve the site?
You need to approve the location. It's a separate statutory requirement, separate from zoning, in order for the applicant to apply for a meeting license.
Okay.
And-
Jamie?
Yeah. So when will the financials on all of this be in place? Because I don't really know how I make any decisions on any of this without knowing what the costs are going to be. Or move it, even, I mean, I understand the October 1st deadline, but that's distinct from everything else we're talking about, it sounds like.
I think the spectrum study was in your packet.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Oh, then never mind, I missed it.
And I think one of
Yeah.
the things that we're asking is a peer review of that study, so that, don't trust them, you're going to hire this gentleman to look at it and give you some feedback about how rigid it is and how reliable it is. So we think it's pretty reliable. Spectrum Group is the best in the business with this kind of thing, and they work with UMass on it, so. But you'll
It's
have
all
an
those
opportunity to do
pages.
a peer review pretty quickly. That peer review can be done in, I think, a matter of weeks.
Well, I mean specifically the cost to the town in terms of police, fire, those type of services, water, et cetera, to the extent that we have them.
All of that's
Oh,
in
they're
the
later.
zoning overlay,
Is it? Okay.
yeah.
I guess what I.
Jeff?
How late in September can you go before you need to make final application to the Gaming Commission? How late can they make a decision on the site and still hit your October 1 deadline?
It has to be filed no later than the end of September,
So
but as a practical matter, there is a lot involved to do that.
I understand, but there's still, so the question is, can you get your application prepared to the 99th percentile, waiting on the board to make a decision on the site?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm
Caitlin,
still,
Erie?
yeah, no, I'm just, just taking it all in. I'm still a little concerned, maybe a little baffled as to how I know we have a public hearing, that's a given, because it's a major, major rezoning of a lot of land, and, there's some people in that area, they've written at least one very strong letters not in favor of rezoning. How do we make an educated decision about a site when we don't have what you outlined, with all due respect? We don't have the traffic study and all this, but yet we're going to approve a site for 200 acres. It's hard for me to grasp, how or why we would make that type of decision. I think you used the term on a little bit of faith. I'm just not used to making decisions on faith if I'm not in, church.
So I guess I'll answer that for you, Mary. We are in the middle of this process. We're asking you to tell us whether you want us to go forward, okay? We can't go do traffic studies and police studies if we don't know that this is going to be the location, which is why the overlay zone is so specific and gives you so much control, because we knew we were going to be asking for sort of an intangible.
Right.
So while we were asking for the intangible, we wanted to make sure that you were comfortable that when it was time for a traffic study, that it's in the overlay zone, that you get to look at it and you get to tell us whether it's acceptable. That when it's time to do a study on how many police officers we need, the overlay zone says you get to tell us if that's enough. So.
Yeah, it's a little chicken egg. I know where you're coming from. I appreciate it. I get it.
But that's why we're asking for
It's a little bit, it's tough to be in this seat too. Because I keep going back to, why aren't we going to town meeting and seeing if we're going to do the overlay with the rezoning and start there? This isn't a situation where it's already zoned commercial, for example, or industrial. I mean, it's, zoned agri. So I keep going back to, do the residents want this, by a 2/3 vote? That's the bigger question.
I think it's also, it's a matter of framing what it is you're doing. Are you approving the project, or are you approving essentially the applicant to move forward to the next phase?
Yeah, well, we're approving the site.
You're approving the site.
For
But
that
that's not
activity.
approval of the project, right? Because the approval of the project is going to require much more detailed analysis by the planning board, which is used to, doing sort of detailed site plan review and things like that, reviewing traffic studies, all of that, and town meeting being satisfied that the zoning is sufficiently protective to give the planning board the tools it needs to make sure the town's protected.
I get it. I mean,
But
we're approving the site
And
for
it's
a
also-
racetrack, but not necessarily this particular project until all those studies are completed. I get it, it's just a chicken and an egg in terms
And
of,
practically speaking, I think it's also just recognizing the reality of where we are, which is if the applicant is going to be able to file before October 1st, it's going to need a decision that can't be made with all that information, because there's no way you could possibly have that information between now and October 1st. And you might say, okay, well, I'm not comfortable making that decision, and that's the answer. And that's a legitimate decision that the board could make. But realistically, if you want the project to go forward potentially to the next phase, This is just the timing reality that we're facing.
And I think we tried to make it so you didn't have to make a leap of faith. That's why we put so much in the overlay zone. So, you know, I know we're here to meet with you guys at any point in time to answer any questions, but I would encourage you to look at the overlay zone in detail and see if there's something, you know, I think it addresses all the concerns that we anticipated would come up with a project of this size.
Chase?
Yeah, I want to thank you for your interest in Sturbridge. I'm in big support of this project, and I do think that, you guys are giving a lot to the town, and you're getting a lot, and I think the board's going to have to work a little harder and try to make this deadline, and, that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Chase.
Karen? I had expressed support of this when it first came forward, and I still support it. And I have read the bylaw, and I have read the host agreement, and as you say, it's very detailed, and it's very beneficial to the town, both ways. In the zoning, we have control, and also in the host with the benefits. So we will need to set a public hearing, and then we will be able to take our vote after that. Jeff, when do you think would be? It's tough.
Well, they're asking for a special meeting on the 30th of August, which is difficult just from a publication point of view, because our newspaper, there's certain timeframes involved. So.
If we did it on the 7th and the board voted on the 7th, then I think that could work.
It's going to be.
Well, we already have a public hearing on the 7th for the senior center project. So you could go later into September, give the applicant a chance to do some more informational processes throughout town. They have a flyer going out, they have a mailer going out, they're meeting with the rec committee. They have met with the department heads on their subject matter expertise, conservation planning, police, fire. So they've done some groundwork, but having information out in the public for the public to absorb and then somehow come to a public hearing informed for your benefit, that would be the benefit of some extra time into September. Knowing, I understand your time crunch, but I would rather have an informed public have a public hearing than an uninformed public have a public hearing, right? So maybe set a time somewhere in mid to late September for the public hearing for you all to make a decision. It's not what the applicant's asking for, I understand, but that's kind of where I am.
Okay, what about September 13th?
What do you think for time?
That would be easier you understand the publication responsibilities.
Right, with the newspaper that.
Because it's difficult on a drop-dead date to get something to them just from their publication point of view. So the 13th would give us time to advertise. I would ask Jonathan to write the public notice for the paper. But that's doable.
Okay,
we would have a single issue
on the
meeting.
agenda. Would the board be amenable to September 13th?
I don't have a problem coming in for an extra meeting, personally.
I have no problem with the 13th.
Okay.
5 o'clock, 6 o'clock? Time of day? Same time as the meeting for tonight, like 6 o'clock?
6:30?
6:30 would be better
6:30.
for
Does it
me.
work for you, Ian?
That's fine.
In terms of process, we also do need to get this in front of the planning board and I believe finance committee. And I'm just putting that out there. I don't know if we can work that in tonight, but we are going to have to get, if we're going to get on the town warrant, we're going to have to get both of those boards.
Right, so the ask that I put in the packet this evening was to refer this to the planning board so they can begin their public hearing process and their work on it. So that is a request that I have this evening as well.
Thank you.
May I ask, vote on that, and then I want to ask them a question that I've had for a while.
Well, after the discussion, Jeff referred to it, and I totally agree to refer the zoning bylaw to the Sturbridge Planning Board for their process to begin with the public hearing. Somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to defer the bylaw to the Sturbridge Planning Board.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, just by way of implication, so they'll begin discussion on the recommended bylaw. The only decision that we have to make is before the October 1st deadline, and it's just a setting a site that is separate to this. This isn't a tacit approval of that site, as you were sort of getting at, right? Because I'm just trying to understand what exactly. So we're wanting to send it to the planning board for them to have a public hearing.
Yes, on the zoning bylaw.
And then on the September 13th, we are having a public hearing to determine whether or not we're setting a site by October 1st.
Yeah, to get
so that
public
for the purposes
input.
of the application.
And we will vote one way or the other
Okay, so and then we're going to vote up or down on the whole project.
on the location.
Okay. Yeah.
There's two,
Two
we talked a little bit about this early on, there's two parallel processes from a public hearing point of view. One, the board has to pick a site, and then the planning board has to approve the project, basically. So,
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the
Can
motion?
we have a discussion, though? Was that
Oh,
discussion?
I thought we had discussion.
Oh, okay, well, Jamie did. You know, at this point, I just want to be open and honest. I know we had agreed to be the sponsor on that zoning. I think it was a 4-1 vote. I was not in favor. I thought if
Yes.
the planning board wants to sponsor it, they can. And so I view this vote as being, at least to some residents, like a tacit approval, like we want to move forward with the zoning. So I'm not there yet, and for that reason, I'm not going to vote in favor of it. I just want
No,
to
that's
let
okay.
people know where I'm coming
I'm
from.
on the same place, Mary. Just
That's okay. All those in favor of passing it on to the planning board? All those opposed? 3-2. Okay, and
One
Jeff?
other item, we anticipate some considerable legal time, and the consultant that Jonathan was talking about is going to cost some money. So I would ask the board to ask the applicant to contribute X.
Yeah, so, Will Cummings,
X times 2.
Will Cummings hasn't prepared a formal proposal yet for me, but he gave me an order of magnitude of about $20,000 for his work. You know, I have no doubt that as things go on, if the initial deposit is insufficient, that you can always ask the applicant to re-up it. I would suggest $15,000 for legal on top of that, so the initial deposit would be $35,000, and hopefully that could get us through, say, town meeting.
Your money.
I just asked if you could put on the credit card for the points. I wanted to see if I could get points on this. Could you take Amex?
Yeah.
How's the proponent feel?
I'm sorry, Mary?
How does the proponent feel?
About the 35?
How do you feel?
That's up to you.
We can also,
I think it's very fair, and I really appreciate it. And I appreciate tonight. I can't tell you how much.
And just, are we going to vote on the
Yes.
scheduling for the public hearing as well tonight?
No, the 13th.
It's the 13th.
Oh, we did.
We agreed
Okay.
that we'll come make a special, meeting.
It's going to be the only thing on the agenda.
Okay, great.
There's the exclamation mark.
I know.
Can we have a motion to approve the $35,000 for the,
I will make a motion to approve the $35,000.
okay, is there a second?
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll second the motion.
All in favor then? All opposed?
I'm going to abstain on that.
Okay, that's 4 in favor, 1 abstention. Okay.
Mary has a question.
I just have one more question, because we've asked this a couple of times. We haven't gotten in a while, but residents were asking me, there was a robocall maybe 6 months ago.
Prior to election.
it might have been prior to election, but one of the questions was, I know they asked about different select people, but then they also asked, do you want a race track in Sturbridge? Or, I'm paraphrasing, because I didn't get it.
No, we were very upset about that.
And I don't know, was that a did it come from anybody?
Probably not.
Not.
We were very upset about that. That didn't help us. I think it was not a good thing for us at
Added
all.
confusion
Yeah.
to everything.
Not
Right.
have anything.
And so nobody has any idea who paid for that?
We'd like to find out.
Oh,
If we do, we will let you know.
okay, all right, thank you.
It was neither mine or nor Chase's campaign.
Yeah, that's right. I'm curious if they like me, though.
Yeah, no,
It will remain a mystery.
yeah, no, Jeff had,
Told us that, but I
Told
just
us
wanted
that.
to ask again, and
yeah, but it's out there more in the public now that it was not you people,
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Thank you.
thank you.
We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
have a great night, everybody.
See you on the 13th.
Thank you for coming in.
Pleasure to see you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, any other old business? Ian,
I have none.
Chase,
I have none.
Mary?
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
We'll see you on the 13th.
Jamie, do you have any? And I have none. Any new business?
I don't think I heard you.
I know. Okay. Hey, clear the room. It's okay. They can, I know it. Gold run. Okay,
Tuesday.
oh, what's his name?
Give it up. Tuesday.
Think of- Mark Karen.
That one stinks.
Lost my agenda. Sorry, who are you looking at?
Mark Karen.
Where is he?
But it is what it is.
There with the glasses.
Oh, yes, he used to be our,
Gotta put
Yeah.
that in our little
Okay,
line.
excuse me, gentlemen. Could you take it out of the room, please?
he used to be the Southbridge rep, right, years ago? What is he doing? Is he affiliated with this?
Did I know? But even Reed Hill?
Reed's here as well?
I don't know where my agenda went.
Okay, new business. Ian?
There it is.
I do not have any new business.
Chase?
I have no new.
Mary?
No.
And I have
Can we
none.
have stuff not on a Monday or Tuesday? Always on a Monday and a Tuesday. It's
Correspondence. Chase?
Okay, I gotta get organized again, Yeah, I'm gonna need
Page 604.
Yeah. All right, correspondence. July 29th, 2021, Conservation Commission notification to abutters. Notification for applicant Michael Young, 231 to 237 Cedar Street, lots 5, 6, 7, and 8 to Jeff Bridges. July 30th, 2021, Charter Communications, upcoming changes. Letter about Catholic TV network on SPP Basic and Tier 1 Starter TV. On Channel 101 from John Mahar to Jeff Bridges. August 1st, 2021, the Dirt News from the Garden newsletter from Joe C. to Jeff Bridges. August 9th, 2021, Garden Party event invitation from the Community Food Collaborative for their garden party on August 18th at 5 p.m. to Jeff Bridges.
Okay, does anyone else have any thing that went through other channels? Okay, next we have approval of minutes, August 2nd, 2021 minutes. Does anyone have any corrections, additions, deletions?
I just have one edit.
Mary?
Alex, on page 614, it starts, Vice Chair Dowling said she was surprised to learn in July that the number of cases increased, and said when the Board of Selectmen are equipped with this information, they can scratch, make important decisions. Yeah, delete, make important decisions, and insert, and share this information with residents so they can be informed. Okay, share this information with residents so they can be informed. And that's it.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, is there a motion then to approve the minutes as amended?
I will move to approve the minutes as amended.
I will.
Is there a second?
I'll second Jamie's motion.
Discussion? All in favor? Okay, 5-0. Okay, citizens forum?
No.
Is there anyone on the public line that would like to address the Board of Selectmen? Is there anyone on the telephone line that would like to address the Board of Selectmen?
Okay, motion to
Wait,
adjourn?
one quick reminder, the Community Food Collaborative is having their open garden party Wednesday evening. That's in your
5 o'clock.
packet, so, as a reminder.
Okay, is there a motion now to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Third.
Discussion. All in favor? Okay, 9 o'clock. Ian, you called it on the dot.
Is that what you said, 9 o'clock? You're all dressed up tonight.
Well,
I figured we have a big audience,
Oh, my gosh, I'm tired.